So if you are interested, I'm going to be presenting on funding. A little bit about myself, a professional agrologist. I worked in the range program for 30 years in the Okanagan region of British Columbia, and retired a few years ago, and I needed some purpose, so I kept going. I'm working with Canadian Forage and Grassland Association, doing grazing plans with Investment Agriculture Foundation as an environmental farm planner. And so I've been asked to talk about funding. So if you've got a pen, if you're interested in funding, I'll try to be concise with the information. I wish I worked 30 years in the range program, and virtual fencing was virtual then. It wasn't a reality, and I can see a phenomenal future for virtual fencing, both on private land and on crown land. The price of fencing, probably wherever you live, is one of the main factors that will benefit the producer. But then the flexibility of virtual fencing is phenomenal as well, because once you build a permanent fence, it's there for the life of that fence. So on with funding. So in British Columbia, as far as I know, and I'm not the expert at this, but the three sources of funding, there are three sources of funding available this year in British Columbia, and they have varying requirements and level of contributions, caps that are given to the client or the applicant, and a certain amount that's required for them to contribute as well. So the first one I'll talk about is Investment Agriculture of British Columbia, Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC, IAF for short. I think if you Google IAF, it'll come up on your browser. There's two programs that the Investment Agriculture works with respect to virtual fencing. And so the first one I'll talk about is the Beneficial Management Practices program. And this one requires an environmental farm plan. The second one I'll speak to doesn't, but the Beneficial Management Practices fund does require you foundationally to get an environmental farm plan. To get an environmental farm plan is fairly straightforward. Again, go to the website, Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC, click on Programs, and scroll down to Environmental Farm Plan, and then you'll click a tab saying Request an Environmental Farm Plan. There's a process you have to go through, but fairly straightforward. Once you have the Environmental Farm Plan, Beneficial Management Practices program is where the funding is located, and the funding falls under one of the programs under what we call the BMP, or the Beneficial Management Program. It's under Riparian and Grazing Fund, and under the Riparian and Grazing Fund, there's a number of different categories that they fund, but the one that you want to look for is the management of tame and native forages. And so it does require, in order for you to secure the fund for virtual fencing for the management of native or tame forages, it does require you to have a grazing management plan. And so before you were able to apply for the virtual funding for the virtual fencing, you would have to a grazing plan through the same program. Now the benefit of that is it's 100% funded. So you would get a grazing management plan done by an advisor, and then once you have that plan, then you can apply for the virtual funding for the virtual fencing. The fund they will supply Investment Agriculture, it's really the Ministry of Agriculture through Investment Agriculture will fund up to 60% of the project costs, up to $70,000. So $70,000 is the amount that they will put a cap on it. And for the most part, that should cover off a fair amount if you're looking at virtual collars. The second one, so again, that's the Beneficial Management Practices was the first one. The second one is a federal fund and does not require the individual or the applicant to have an environmental farm plan. The fund is called Climate Agri-Solutions Fund, and it will be, I'm going to be talking about a third fund that comes through the Canadian Forage and Grassland Association. It's the same federal dollars, so they can't be duplicated. You can't get funded for one and then apply for funding for the second one. It's the same fund. There is some different criteria and different capping. So the Climate Agri-Solutions Fund through Investment Agriculture Foundation has three components. There's a nitrogen component, cover cropping component, and the one you'd be interested in would be the rotational grazing component. And so we call it the CAF fund, which is the Climate Agri-Solutions Fund. It funds 85% up to, and they will supply up to $100,000. So it's a really, I always say it's a lot better than any bank's going to give you. And so it requires you to have farm status. You have to be registered with CRA, and you have to be in operation for a year. And the difference between this one and the last one I'll talk about is there is no in-kind contribution by the client. So if you're going to build a fence, put in a water development with your virtual fencing, there's no in-kind dollars, and it would all have to be contracted, or any money or any work that you do put into the project would not be considered your contribution. So again, that's the Climate Agri-Solutions Fund through Investment Agriculture. Now the last one I'm going to talk about through the Canadian Forage and Grassland Association, and it is very similar to the previous one. It's being administered through the BC Forage Council, and they call it the off-CAF funding. You might have heard about it. So it's the On-Farm Climate Action Fund. Again, it's a $100,000 fund, up to $100,000. It is 70% funded for implementation. So for example, if you purchase virtual collars, they would provide 70% of that funding up to $100,000, or the $100,000 would be their cap. So I think it would probably turn out to be somewhere around $140,000 that you could spend. It doesn't require you to have a plan, but it is always recommended that if you're putting together a plan, it's probably best to work through a mentor. There's quite a process and a rubric measuring stick that comes with the plans that doesn't guarantee funding, but it does give you a better opportunity to secure fund if you have a mentor, work with a mentor to develop a plan. The plans are covered 85%. They're set at $1,750, and you would receive $1,500 back. Basically pay $250 for a good plan that would go a long ways toward getting funding. You don't need to use the mentor, but again, it's recommended that you to receive the funding that you would use the mentor. Some general rules with any of the funds through the government: there's no stacking of government funds, whether that's the off-CAF or the federal funding and or the provincial funding. There's a requirement that you be a business, and that you be registered with CRA. And I think from a standpoint of, I've done a lot of plans. There's Nadia's a mentor, I'm a mentor. There's a lot of interest in it. People are, I think some of the figures Nadia showed with respect to rotational grazing in the province, I think it's picking up. I think a lot of people are realizing that they can, it's the benefit of using virtual fencing and to getting better use of their land. And I think we heard about it tonight with some of the presenters, that there's definitely a better utilization of the forages out there, and you get better gains, and obviously at the end of the day, it's the more profitability that everybody's looking for.